How active has the trade talks been picking up, and how aggressive are you getting at this point?
Well, it's been active, obviously, just not with us, but with all teams, and we're getting a lot of calls, and I think there's a lot, starting with the last couple of weeks and in Vegas, and everybody now is pretty much arriving in Miami, so there's a lot more talk heating up with everybody.
What will make you make the move with one of those core guys? Like, is there something that will have to happen for you to pull the trigger?
You know, we're in no rush. I think we just have to have a deal that we're comfortable with. I mean, we don't have any deadlines or self-imposed deadlines or imposed deadlines by other people. It's we said what our intentions are is to change some things, but as far as but we're still running an operation. We have some. We want to get if we're going to make a change, we want to get a deal that we're comfortable with, that we think is the best deal we can get.
Will that change happen before the start of camp, though? Sometime this summer?
Like I said, it would be impossible for me to guess. I mean, if we're getting calls from some guys, some players, where we are interested in some of the things we're hearing about, whether they develop into something more real. Couldn't really give you a firm answer on an exact timeline.
Brendan, there's at least one report out there that the asking price for Phil, other GMs are saying is crazy. Is that the reaction you're getting when you guys talk?
What GM? Which GMs are saying?
There's just a report.
No,
there's no specifics.
You got to give me a specific name, or I don't give a specific answer.
There was no specific name.
Oh, okay. Well, then I won't give a specific answer.
In general, though, is there?
Generally speaking.
Generally speaking, is the reaction? How's the reaction been when you guys talk price?
There's interest, and it's obviously not just with him, but with several of our players. We've got some very good players that we value, other teams value. If there's no deal, we don't feel that there's necessarily a drop dead date for us. That we've got a great coach that has the ability to make players better. But like I said at the end of the year, if there's opportunities for us to make some changes, we would like to do that. Other teams know that, so they're making calls. But as far as any sort of deadlines, and no one's called us crazy yet. Apparently these other GMs you're speaking to are telling you something different. But I think the conversations have all been very good up until now.
Do you tend to still pick at the number 4 spot, or do you see yourself either trading down or even possibly trading up a spot?
These are all good questions. Whether or not we're going to trade up or trade down, we wouldn't say definitively that we would not do one or the other. But right now, we're expecting to pick 4th.
As important as draft picks are, do you see acquiring prospects possibly from other organizations, kids 20, 21, and further developed than the 18-year-olds that might be attained here in the next couple of days?
You're always looking to improve. We've said that we're certainly interested in draft picks, but if that comes also in the form of acquiring younger players for teams that maybe are a little bit older or a little bit more advanced in their development and are willing to part with some younger players, we would do that too.
With Kessel, can you characterize the level of interest that you received on him?
There's been strong interest in not just Phil, but several of our players, and I think that, as I said at the end of the year, for whatever reason, the mix hasn't necessarily worked out well here, but we do have some strong individuals and talented players. I won't say one way or the other whether, who's going to be around and who won't. It's still too early for that. All I can say is that, when you have a guy like that who's such a natural goal scorer in the prime of his career, everybody wants goal scoring. Obviously in a cap world, it's not as easy for everybody to fit that player in as they used to be in the old days. But he's a great player and a great goal scorer, a great finisher. So there's been a lot of interest.
With the cap constraints, is there a general expectation in your part that you might have to retain some salary to get a deal done?
That's not something that we're talking about right now. So I think that there's some competition out there among teams that want them, that want other players of ours. And we might keep them. And so we're not really committing to anything one way or the other right now. We have time on our side where we haven't said we're going to build this overnight, so we have time on our side where we don't feel that we need to do anything knee-jerk in order to get something done on some self-imposed or outer-imposed deadline.
Have you gotten any offers that you kind of had to think about, like any real serious offers?
You know, it's mostly up until now just been talk and progression of talk. I don't think that we've been at a point where there's a definitive offer out there, but there's been some really encouraging conversations that have, you know, started weeks ago and have grown and are continuing to grow.
Those one of your guys with a limited no trade clause, are you at the stage where he's part of this a little bit, sort of keeping him abreast? Because obviously he has to have one of those teams on his list to be moving.
You know what? You guys keep talking about one guy, and I mean, until we have a deal, there's no point really involving any players. This is something that's not just going on with us, but for all teams and all players. And look, if I'm a player, I've got one job to do, and that's just to get ready for my next season. So until that happens, we've said to all our players, and we said to them when the season ended, look, there's probably going to be some changes, but until there are changes, get ready for the season. Expect to be a Maple Leaf and get ready if that changes, and if we have to make a phone call and involve somebody and their agent, when that time comes, that's when we'll do it.
If you do pick up fourth, is there one specific guy you've targeted that will be the guy that you hope is still around?
Yeah, we think there are a few guys that will be available at that number that we're excited about.
Brendan, what about a general manager? Are you going in with any news going to come before the draft, or are you going to wait till the summer to fill that position?
Well, that'd be pretty quick before the draft.
Well, you might have something up your sleeve. You're a pretty quiet guy.
I'm a pretty quiet guy, but I don't know if I'm that good of a poker player. You know, like I've said, I would, you know, the search is still ongoing for me. I haven't ruled out hiring somebody at a certain point, but I also thought that it got to a point where I was comfortable with the group we had, and I felt it was important for me to put that on the back burner and just really focus with our team and with our group on the draft and on free agency, and continue maybe some of the discussions I've had around the league with some potential guys.
We'll be making the announcement tomorrow.
Right.
Do you guys intend to meet with any free agents or speak with them during this window that opened here?
Yes.
Has that happened yet? Or?
There's been some conversations with general managers, but not with any players yet.
If you pick a 24 in play, or if you take a D-man, say a 4, does that mean you take a 4 to 24th? What's possibilities with that 24th pick?
Well, is it in play? I mean, I think they're all in play. We would answer the phone on just about anything, but it really, especially 24, with the number 4 pick, there's a few different options that could occur. With the number 24 pick, it really, you know, we're preparing for many options depending on who goes before us. We have a cluster of players that we like in that area, so we'll make that decision as we get closer. And, you know, we're trying to prepare ourselves for different scenarios that could pop up in that moment. So if something does change in that moment, we're not unprepared, whether we want to move up or move back.
Is there a desire to flip possibly the 24 pick and try to get maybe 2 second-rounders? Because I know you mentioned talking about getting Hunter as many picks as possible going into
It's a possibility, yeah.
Do you get the sense, you know, this is being billed as the best draft since '03, that these picks are more valuable than other years? I know you haven't been doing this that long, but do you get that sense?
Well, I think people have all said that this is a very deep draft. I think anytime you get to a draft, whatever year it is, it just seems so important to you. It becomes such a huge focus. But we do like the depth of this draft, as a lot of people have said.
Brendan, do you envision a scenario where Phil could come back and stay in the organization long term, or is it to a point now where sooner or later something's going to happen with him?
That's a good question. I wouldn't rule anything out, and I don't think anybody has said that any particular player on our team is done. I think the fact that we've come out and said that there are going to be some changes, and obviously when you say that and you look around the rest of the other 29 teams, they look at your best player and they look at your most productive player, and he's probably garnered the most interest. He's probably the player that has gotten the most phone calls. But we haven't said one way or the other that it's got to be one way. So it's a possibility, but there's a lot of interest from other teams in him, and well-deserved. The way he's produced over his career and over the last several years, he had a down year last year. He knows it. We think he'll bounce back. Other teams will think he'll bounce back, or we wouldn't be getting phone calls.